Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
You are what you watch. Hello, my name is Harry Tambuatco. Welcome to our show. Let me start out this show giving a short commentary about the issues concerning Yolanda. Alam po natin, marami talaga na pinsala. Now, alam din natin may konting kahinaan ng gobyerno, pero alam din po natin, mahirap naman talaga mga logistics. Ang tawag dyan, logistical nightmare. Now, as we see things develop, there are many issues that have come to pass. I got a call just yesterday from a friend in Zamboanga. He lives in Zamboanga. He was very passionate, so I promised him I will give that commentary. He asks, sa dami nating helicopter owned by the private sector, not the military because we barely have any, and if we do, these are probably flying dinosaurs, but we have many that are registered all over the country. Why is it these helicopters cannot be used? Or why can't the president mandate that they use these choppers basically for relief? Alam naman natin, hindi kaya ng ports, hindi kaya ng, we only have 3 C-130s. Alam natin, may problema yung tarmac. Pero mga helicopters sana magamit. Bakit kaya napakatahimik? But then again, many of them, as we see now, like Jollibee, San Miguel, put out 150 million here and there, and yet their helicopters are for themselves. Then again, that's one issue. The other issue he brought up, he challenges. The name of my friend, incidentally, is Ed Buendia. Now, Ed challenges. Sabi niya, nasaan yung mga komunista na pumipila sa American, sa US Embassy araw-araw? Nasaan yung mga red-bearing flags? Yung mga sa lakas ng loob, bira ng bira sa Amerika. Ba't di sila lumabas ngayon? Sabihin nila, umalis ang Amerika sa Pilipinas. Sige nga. I thought of it for a while, and realistically, I guess we know who our friends are between China and the US of A. The last commentary I'd like to make is, before Yolanda hit us, which is really a devastation, let us not forget, we just experienced the war in Zamboanga, regardless of who caused this. There's a lot of rehabilitation that Zamboanga requires. Anong ginawa natin? Nilagay natin sa harap ng mga, all the headlines, and then kinalimutan. Then nangyari yung buhol. Nagtakbuhan lahat ng relief center, nagtutulungan tayo sa buhol, kaawa-awa nga naman kasi sa earthquake. And then sumunod yung Santi. Tandaan niyo po yung bagyo. Marami po na pinsala na naman yan. And of course, ngayon, Tacloban and Eastern Visayas. Alam niyo po, it seems like cog on grass, where the wind blows, that's where government wants to go. It seems there's no consistency on development. Now, yesterday, I was listening to one of the broadcast networks, and I was listening to Dr. Kelvin Rodolfo. He's a man of science, and tama nga naman, marunong talaga. Iniexplika niya ang naiiba sa storm surge, tsaka anong tsunami. Now, I'm not going to go into detail what makes one different from the other. The point is they're both deadly and they caused a lot of havoc. But the point I'd like to bring out is he says in the Visayan region, which is true, we have more of the poorer groups of Filipinos that live there. And these are basically the underprivileged, or what we call, well, dito squatter ang tawag, no? Ganun din naman dyan eh, the provincial poor. Ang nangyayari, they just reside and live anywhere. And they create these huts and they create communities all over the place. Now, he says, they are most vulnerable pagdating sa ganitong mga panahon nangyayari na ganito, nagkaka-storm surge. Siyempre, sila ang tatamaan. And his solution, he says, he congratulates the president for being tough enough to introduce the RH bill. I'd like to point out, Dr. Rodolfo, not the rich should not be allowed just to have children. The poor have the same right as the rich. Now, when it comes to vulnerability because they live in those areas, it is not the RH bill or the number of children that they survive. It is the incompetence of government to provide the safety nets for these people, be it for education, to warn them of disasters, pending disasters, as well as safety nets, proper social issues that can be addressed, proper buildings, etc., etc. Let us not blame the poor simply because they are poor. Ano, ang mayaman lang Pilipino pwedeng magkaanak? Alam niyo po, baka masyado na kayong matagal nakatira sa Illinois. Nasa Pilipinas po ito. Dito, pare-pareho, tsaka pag-alam ko, demokrasya pa rin po ito. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk about the topic tonight, which hits us all in the gut. Now, I'm not going to talk about the devastation of Yolanda because we hear it everywhere, every day. There's the finger pointing, there's the relief goods, there's the incompetence or inadequacy of our armed forces, kaawa-awa. Yet every Filipino is coming together to try and help and save those survivors in the Visayas. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to talk about the root of that problem. Ang tawag po dito, expenditure. Ang sinabi po again ni Dr. Rodolfo, Kelvin Rodolfo, ang Pilipinas ay pobre, isang pobreng bayan. I tend to disagree. We have money. We may not be the richest country. We may not be the first developed country. Let me remind you, we're not poor. All you need to do is tune into Congress. Here every day we have it. In the afternoons, in GNN. May pondo naman ng Pilipinas eh. Ang problema, hindi napupunta sa tamang appropriation. Wherever it's appropriated to, it doesn't get there. For one reason or another, magic has come into play over the decades. Let's not just blame Pinoy. Let's blame the system. And ladies and gentlemen, I guess needless to say, nakikita naman natin yung mga scam, di ba? Now, tomorrow we are going to witness the Supreme Court hearing on whether the constitutionality of the DAP, the PDAF, the use of the Malampaya funds, and I think there's now a new scam, lumalabas ang tawag dito, realigning the bicameral funds, ang tawag dito, pork public insertions. With us, he's a celebrity of sorts. His name's Attorney Judd Roy, an old friend of mine, but I've never had the fortunate experience of interviewing him one-on-one. I've always asked him to come in here in the studio and being interviewed by all the different hosts. I'm glad I have him one-on-one. Maraming salamat, Attorney Judd Roy.
Hi, Harry. Thank you for having me one-on-one.
Oo nga. Judd,
I wish I could hear that invitation more from the ladies, but I try. I get by.
Judd, you have been celebritized, whether you like it or not, in the Corona impeachment trial. You were one of the front runners. When you were up there, I was proud of you. You being a personal friend and seeing your prowess, your expertise come out. As of late, you have been vindicated. Ang kalaban nyo pala, kangaroo court. Parang ganun nangyari. Pero paano ka mananalo dun sa mga senador? Binayaran ng 100 million. Wait, you were the one who said that. They were paid 100 million.
That's
you
right.
were spot on. And yet you were hit with contempt because you refused to name your sources. How do you feel na na-vindicate ka, first and foremost?
Well, Harry, thank you for your very kind words, but I think people have to understand how these things happen. First, let's go to why I was held in contempt. I refused to disclose
Your sources.
the actual source who provided the information. You see, under the Code of Ethics of Lawyers, we are duty-bound at our own peril. Kahit na kami mapahamak, na huwag ibunyag yung mga sikreto ng mga kliyente. Bawal yun.
Bawal.
Bawal. Ang pwede magbunyag, yung kliyente. Kung gusto
What
niya.
happens if you do?
Oh, I can get
Disbarred.
cited in contempt again or disbarred. Yes,
disbarred.
Disbarred.
Or contempt again.
Or depending if
So
the
talo ka
proceedings
either
are-
way.
No, but it's really not hindi naman I'm not really interested in identify or letting everybody know kung sino nagsabi. Just think of it this way. very accurate yung information, well ahead of time.
On hindsight, yes.
Oo,
On
di ba?
hindsight.
Oo. So, it was a very secret arrangement, so only a few people would have known, right?
Very few.
So you can imagine why, when I received the information, I felt it was 100% reliable. And now the question is, what led me to disclose it? Actually, we received the information and we discussed it, and my co-counsel refused to disclose it. Said, no, we don't have any proof, etc. We don't have, we're lawyers. We look for evidence. I said, look, I said, there's no other way to stop this except to try and draw a reaction from the public. Yeah, but this is, it's risky business. I said, I understand what the risks are. I'll do it.
Which you did.
Which I did. And, the rest, so to speak, is history, my neck on the line.
It was.
What surprised me, though, is that if I were the Senate, I would have investigated. Okay, fine. You know what? We're citing you in contempt, but let's investigate. Because there were certain names mentioned.
So the fact that they did not investigate it, as
That's
far
what-
as you're concerned,
Yeah.
there's guilt.
Well, to be fair, no, if you recall, correct, if you will recall, I was asked to explain, right? Actually, they asked the defense to explain, and of course, everybody's pointing at me, so I got up to do it. And after that exchange with Senator Cayetano, who interpolated me, nothing was heard of it.
Oo nga eh.
It was finished. It was done. And in fact, I was very happy that the senators had listened to me and given me a break, as it were. No? Because I knew that some of them might have really been offended by the insinuation. Because perhaps, I think at that point, not all of them were aware of what was going on. Right?
That's correct.
But
That's correct.
there was a certain day when all of a sudden, my destiny changed. It was when that fellow on the other side covered his ears. Oh, no, then that, so then they start talking about citing this guy in contempt.
Correct.
Then, of course, some of the more partisan senators said, oh, we can't cite them and not cite the other side. So, let's see. Oh, yeah, that guy, let's hold him in contempt too.
Pero the fact that they did not even investigate further, the fact that information like this is released, that points to them there is some type of admission of guilt by itself. But then again, they didn't receive the full amount then. Hindi pa eh. They were told to create their budgets, to come up with their report on their recommendations, pero hindi pa maybe Drilon got it already, maybe the three of them got it already, Enrile, but not everybody yet. Because on release, there was a timetable. Eh?
Right.
There was a timetable on the release.
Well, there was a very stupid remark or a stupid pronouncement, I should say, that came out when all of this got disclosed recently. And the pronouncement was, is there bribery after the fact? That is, as I'm sorry to say, I am trained as a lawyer. I know the law. And I can't fault people for not knowing the law. But when you're in a position to make a public pronouncement, and you have access to any number of lawyers you wish, right?
Yes.
Please, don't
Get
say,
one.
Yeah, I mean,
Get
or
one.
ask 10, right?
Yes.
Not listen to the guys who are accustomed to blowing air up your behind.
Yes, yes.
Right? So, is there bribery after the fact? Of course there is
Yes.
bribery after the fact.
Yeah.
Because the
Even
mere,
I knew that.
the mere offer or promise is bribery. But this Harry, is this little insight into that incident actually, if you try to look past the portal, opens a vast horizon to a serious political problem. That problem, Harry, is the loss of legislative independence because of overwhelming political power in the executive. Because the executive has the financial means to distort the will of the legislature. We no longer have a balance of power.
No more. We've discussed this, and I totally agree. What I don't understand is, now that you've been vindicated, bakit hindi mo balikan ang mga senador? Lahat pala kayo binayaran eh. Tapos, bibirehin nyo kami. Hindi kaya... not that I'm for or against the Chief Justice Corona.
Sure.
Because he was indicted for he was impeached for some other reason, and then we let it go there. It's been quiet. he has a BIR issue. Sure. In fact, he was booed in the, I was there, I personally saw him where the people booed him in the Million People March, which broke my heart. No, nakaawa-awa naman because he was trying to show it's the government, di ba? There's something wrong with it. Pero hindi nabasa ng taong bayan eh. Now that it's fact, lumabas na all these senators na became the judges.
Yeah.
And it was a kangaroo court. You could not win. Eh, siyempre, binayaran eh. At babayaran.
Yes.
And they collected. Yung naiba doon, they collected. Now, hindi nyo pwede balikan. Ayaw nyo balikan. At least, your group, the defense.
Well, Harry, first let me be clear, no? None of us lawyers for Mr. Corona anymore. I am not his lawyer. It is wrong to call me a Corona lawyer. I was a lawyer during the impeachment, and he was the person I defended. But again, I will remind all of you that I stood there to defend the office and the Supreme Court. It so happened that Mr. Corona was the occupant.
Yes.
If that would have been Ms. Sereno, I would be there too. Let me put it that way. I grew up in that office. The rudiments and the beginnings of my professional training, I was fortunate enough to have learned them in the office of the Chief Justice under the tutelage of Andres Narvasa. And it was he who told me to go there and
Rest his soul.
give him hell, is what he told me. And I tried to do that.
You
but
did.
Why not?
You did.
And I went to
Judge,
hell
you
and
did.
back.
Yeah, you did.
But why not revive it, right? First, it's not my place. Secondly, this is not
Pero
a
pwede
strictly...
ba?
Well,
Theoretically.
there's a principle in law that when the case is tainted with fraud, bribery...
Which this one is.
Yes, then it's null and void. And if it's null and void, we don't need a ruling. Now, but look
Okay.
at the...
You mean the Supreme Court can rule on its own to say, mali ang ginawa nyo, binayaran pala sila ng presidente, ang Department of Budget and Management, naglabas pala ng
et cetera, et cetera.
10 billion,
Yeah.
mga senador, mga iba 50 million lang, iba 100
whatever.
million, whatever. Illegal na yun, but never mind. Since binayaran kayo, null and void dapat yan.
That's right.
So that's automatic. Ba't di ginagawa ng Supreme Court? Takot si Sereno.
Well, no, it's an impractical solution, and I'll tell
It's
you why.
useless.
Well, no, the only one it would really satisfy would be Mr. Corona. You have to remember, this was not a strictly legal proceeding.
Political, ano?
It was tainted. Well, it's actually a political process. We all know that now. We tried our best as lawyers to have some legal parameters established. For instance, they issued the TRO, right? Blocking PS Bank from being forced to disclose
Yes,
the
the
accounts.
AMLA. Oh,
Yes,
the
there was
AMLA.
before
Before
the
pa
AMLA.
the AMLA,
Right,
disclosed.
yung signature
Yeah, they
cards,
blocked it,
blocked.
yes.
Okay. But what did they do later on? They
blocked them.
allowed the documents from the little lady to appear.
Little lady.
All these fantasy island
yeah.
apparitions and strange things. All of a sudden, the same documents that were being blocked.
We're all...
Yeah, we're already, and we don't even know if they're authentic because precisely the authentic ones were being blocked. So
right.
there's no real genuine respect for legal processes. In other words, even hearsay was allowed. What the impeachment court
Correct.
did, let's just
We
let
realized that.
everything come in here, and then we'll sift through the chaff, as it were, sift the chaff from the grain. But that's very dangerous. That's very dangerous when the judges are not lawyers. It's very dangerous because, I'll tell you, it's very dangerous to have the public looking over your shoulder in a trial. There is an effect on public pressure. It is the wrong effect, and this is exactly why we do not have jury trials here.
That's the reason.
It distorts the fulfillment of the rule of law. And that's just the way
That's
it
a different
is.
point of view. I didn't realize that's a nice... But then again, we give too much power to the judge. It becomes absolute.
Well,
So
no,
it seems.
but that's the nature of the thing, because when you go to court, Harry, the buck stops there. Right or wrong, he
Sila
will settle
magja-judge.
it. Yeah, I'll finish it. I'll end it. Right or wrong, just do your best.
Resolution and tawag
Yeah,
doon.
or decision ang tawag doon.
Decision.
Actually, that's the Supreme Court, no?
Decision.
Yeah, so you just present everything these are the rules of the battle. Everybody present everything, etc. I will determine all of this. Then I'll just tell you in the end what I think, and that's it. At the end of the day, Harry, a decision of the Supreme Court is a legal opinion. Why do I say that?
Because
Some
it's the Court
lawyers,
Supreme.
some lawyers will be upset. Maybe some justice of the Supreme Court will be upset as well. I say that because tomorrow, the day after, the Supreme Court can again reverse its own.
But only they can reverse
Correct.
it.
So, but what I'm saying is, so it's a mere opinion. It's not cast in stone. It's an opinion that stands for as long as it's not withdrawn or reversed by the entity that issued
But
it.
isn't the Supreme Court damaged because in this case, public money was used by the executive to bribe the judges who were the senators to take down its very own Chief Justice. Not necessarily, let's not look at Corona as the person.
Yeah, sure.
Chief Justice Corona, but the Chief Justice. The fact na kaya ng executive gamitin yung legislative para birahin ang judiciary, hindi kaya parang mali ata ang message nito?
Well, that's exactly what I was trying to point out in the beginning, Harry.
It is wrong.
Wala nang check and balance.
Wala nang check and balance.
And anybody who goes to law school will tell you that one of the first things they learn is that the judiciary is the weakest.
Yes.
It is the weakest of the three. Why? There's nothing there. It's got the most meager budget. You've been to courtrooms around the country.
Yeah,
You see what it's like.
dilapidated. Yeah.
It's tragic.
It's
Right?
tragic. It's tragic.
It's very difficult to modify procedures. You cannot just say, oh, sige, tomorrow everything's electronic filing. That doesn't work that way.
No,
It's not that simple, see? So, in fact, I think the Supreme Court is one of the last entities that actually buys manual typewriters. It's the largest single. I used to sit on the Bids and Awards Committee. It is, I think, at least at that time, I know, it was the largest single purchaser periodically, regularly, of manual typewriters. Why? Well, I said, why are we buying this stuff? Why don't you issue everybody
a computer?
Sir, when there's no electricity, may deadlines, so kasi in the rules of court, so yung typewriter lang ho yung pwede. So, okay, so we'd buy this stuff, right? You know how these old things that they throw it. Many of the kids haven't seen this thing. They can't imagine the sound of clackety, 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 on the office all day, right? But, you know, when you're good at typing, and I think some of the most accomplished typists are in the judiciary, you type hard, right?
Yeah.
And those things crack and break.
That's right.
Now, it's more expensive to have it serviced. So they just buy a new one.
Oh nga, no? That's right. That's why.
This is the reality of. So you're worried about this perception or misperception about graft and corruption in the Supreme Court. There's a whole host of other problems.
One last question before we go into a break. Judd, ever since I've known you, although you come from a political family, your background, you were growing up, Senator Roy, and basically politics is all around you. And yet I know you abhor politics.
Yeah.
You are becoming very political. Why? But before you answer that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break for a station ID. But think about it. Ang presidente may hawak ng pera, pinag-uusapan na po natin yan, pero the power of the purse dapat nga nasa Kongreso. So, sa mga congressman at senador. Pero yung budget para lumabas na sa presidente. Yung judiciary, the third power department, is supposed to stand alone. Pero ngayon, siyempre, nangyayari, ang pinakamatapang ngayon at pinakamalakas ay lumalabas sa presidente. Ang issue pinalabas ko lang doon in this first half was pinalalabas lang natin yung presidente, ang office niya, ang nagpalabas at tinalo yung Supreme Court Chief Justice. Parang ganon. When we come back, let's talk about the other issues, which is the topic concerned, which is the expenditure of the offices and where it's going today. After all, this is what we call the headlines of all newspapers today. We'll be right back.